King Gertrich, someone went from $50,000 to $90,000 and still has almost nothing saved, income up 80% over a decade, and their net worth barely moved. That's the trap. This video shows exactly why that happens and the concrete system that stops it cold. Stay until the end because the math on what those raises were actually worth will hit hard. Here's what most people don't know. The problem was never the paycheck. It's what happens to every single raise, almost on autopilot, that quietly destroys wealth. It has a name. Lifestyle creep. And it's almost certainly happening to you right now. Lifestyle creep is simple. As income rises, spending rises to match it. Dollar for dollar, a nicer apartment, a newer car, more subscriptions, more takeout, more little treats. Each upgrade feels completely earned and reasonable when it happens, and that's the danger. In isolation, every single one of those choices makes total sense. Together, they're lethal, because together they absorb 100% of every raise before savings ever sees a dime. Let's put real numbers on this, because the math is the wake-up call most people never get. A $10,000 raise sounds great, but after taxes, it's really closer to $7,000. $7,000. That's all there is to work with. Now watch how fast it disappears. Rent goes up $300 a month. That's $3,600 a year, gone. A slightly nicer car adds $200 a month, and another $2,400 a year, gone. A few extra subscriptions, more delivery, some small luxuries, $100 a month more, gone. That's $7,200 in new spending. The entire after-tax raise, consumed. Savings rate unchanged. Net worth unchanged. And it felt like a pretty good year, but here's what that raise was actually worth if it had gone to investments instead. $7,000 a year invested at 8% for 20 years is roughly $345,000. Give it 30 years and that same $7,000 per year compounds to roughly $856,000. The cost of lifestyle creep isn't the spending itself, it's the compounding that never happened, and that's just one raise. Most people do this 5 or 6 times across a career. The wealth that got spent on upgrades across a decade adds up to hundreds of thousands of dollars lost. Now the question is, why do smart people keep falling for this? The psychology is the real villain. The first force is hedonic adaptation, the brain's built-in ability to reset to any new normal. That new apartment felt amazing for maybe 90 days. Then it became just where home is. Happiness resets, but the rent doesn't. The monthly expense stays, the joy disappears. So the brain reaches for the next upgrade, and the cycle starts again. This never stops on its own. The second force is social comparison. Raises and promotions reset what normal looks like. A new job title brings new coworkers, new social circles, and new ideas about what life should cost. Social feeds make it worse. Everyone's highlight reel runs at full volume all the time. The third force is the most seductive, the I earned it trap, and it feels completely true. A raise absolutely was earned, but it also feels like permission to spend rather than a chance to build. That feeling isn't greed, it's wiring. Understanding it is the first step to beating it. But there's a fourth force, and it's the most dangerous one because it locks the trap shut. Fixed costs, housing and car payments don't flex down when times get tight, they're permanent. Upgrading rent or buying a nicer car locks in a higher burn rate for years, sometimes a decade. You can cancel a streaming service. You can't cancel a lease or a car loan painlessly. So those two, housing and cars, are the biggest culprits. They're where the most damage happens. Behind them, subscriptions that multiply quietly, food delivery that becomes a weekly habit, and small luxuries that turn fixed. And the worst version, upgrading on credit, where interest stacks on top of every lifestyle choice made. Here's the question worth sitting with. How many of your current fixed costs came from a raise? Think about your own number. How much wealth do you think those upgrades have cost you so far? Drop it in the comments. Because here's what changes everything. A concrete, simple system that works even when willpower doesn't. Step 1 is the most important move anyone can make, and it has to happen before the lifestyle adjusts. Bank the raise. The month a raise hits, immediately auto-increase investing by the full after-tax amount. Pay the future self the raise first, because you can't miss what never lands in your checking account. This is the single most powerful move, because lifestyle creep runs on the money that shows up in checking. Remove the money before the brain sees it, and the lifestyle can't inflate. There's nothing to inflate with. Step 2 is the 50% rule. Invest at least half of every raise. Enjoy the other half guilt-free. This makes the system sustainable. The reward is still there, but half of it builds the future. No system that eliminates all reward lasts. The 50% rule is built to actually stick. Step 3. Keep fixed costs flat. This one move kills most of the creep before it even starts. Hold the housing costs steady. Don't upgrade the car. Watch what happens to every raise after that. When housing and cars stay flat, most of the damage disappears because those were the biggest leaks. Step 4 is the one that removes the human element entirely. Automate it, so willpower isn't the variable. Set auto transfers so raise money routes to investments before it ever touches the checking account. Willpower fails, especially in a good month when everything feels fine and the account looks healthy. Automation doesn't have good days and bad days. It runs the same every single time without negotiating. Step 5. Spend freely on the 1 or 2 things that genuinely matter and ruthlessly cut the rest. Lifestyle creep is mostly spending on things that bring no lasting joy. It's just automatic upgrading. Find the 1 or 2 things that genuinely bring real satisfaction and pour the enjoyment half of the raise there. That's not deprivation. That's intentional spending. There's a massive difference between the two. Step 6 is the mindset shift that ties the whole system together, and most people never make it. Stop tracking income. Start tracking savings rate, because savings rate is the number that actually builds wealth. Income is vanity, savings rate is the scoreboard. And it's the only scoreboard that matters for financial freedom. Here's the truth that most high earners never sit with long enough to feel the weight of it. A 10% saver needs roughly 40 to 50 working years to reach financial independence. A 50% saver reaches independence in roughly 17 years. On the same income, completely different lives. The only variable is what they did with every raise. That's the real reason some people pull ahead and others stay stuck. It was never about the paycheck size. It's not what gets made, it's what gets kept, and kept consistently across every single raise. The people who reach financial independence aren't always the highest earners in the room. They're the ones who refuse to let lifestyle eat every raise. Year after year, without exception, every raise is a fork in the road. There are only 2 directions from that fork, and both are a choice. One path builds wealth that compounds for decades, $856,000 waiting at the end. The other path feels great for about 90 days, and then it just becomes the new normal that never grows. The next raise is coming, and the decision about what to do with it has to be made before it hits. Decide before the money arrives, set the auto transfer, hold the fixed costs flat, take 50% off the top, because income going from $50,000 to $90,000 should change someone's net worth dramatically. And the only thing standing between that income and that wealth is the decision made at the next fork in the road.